Welcome to Dungeon Master. This is number 45. I've got a brimful of Asher on my 45, as I used to say. But we're going to plug in today to a realm that we haven't been to yet. And when I say realms, I don't mean just Forgotten Realms. Because Forgotten Realms is one way to go. And if you're thundering about why I can't get to this level, or whether I'm on the next, or what's going here, is that we just have begun in the Forest of No Return. And that there is to this leveling that we say we've seen but have not seen. So, for a while, we must resume in an area known as the Wizards and Warriors NES Zone. That's the zone we're in, but that it's a dungeon master is because we can pervade the screen with many thoughts in many directions, and that Parsifal's on the soundtrack is much more dungeon mastery. So let's go have you controlled it at home and do what you would do if you had to fight all the way through the most salient of all games, the ways of which the game take course and show us deep into the architecture of their domain, and that we in their domain may rest in them, knowing that there is someone in our domain for us before it falls apart. Now, the reason that I think that Wizards of the Coast would be so pleased with this is because this is a very typical adventure for Dungeons and Dragons, and I think that even though there's a game in Amsterdam where they play it for real, they play everything in for real there, and that's just the way it is. There's no fakery about it, even though it's kind of not true that you can become a knight in real life by becoming a knight on this game, but if you become a knight on this game, it's just like being a knight in real life, right? Of course. Well, maybe not as good, but it feels about as good to kill all these spiders, and that he's nailing every last one of them is just a testament to how fast he's going through the game compared to me. I mean, I didn't get to this part of the game till hours after the tree part, and this is the tree part, and I should see where we're going. Oh, but whoever's controlling this is doing a masterful job in finding all the secret exits. So we went out of the tree and across the next few. Oh, of course, I get another weapon, and I'm so good at this game. There's no depth to what I can't do if I'm playing this. And of course, we all know this is the game. From centuries before there was any electronic system, this game existed in our minds, and we played it exactly like this before it came out on the Video Game Plus, and this is way further than I've ever made it in less time than this. I don't know, is he flying through time, or is we got time and space? They're saying we've got a whole scavenger hunt ahead of us. So, we give you wanton well-wishing that although we barely went through that in a few other games, we have a game taking shape here where we see the intervals between man and Action Command and Action Commander, the video game. But look at him go down this tree, like with the same courage he went up it, and now he's stuck in the middle with you, and he's got oh, you have discovered gems. Well, good job, says Dungeon Master. At least I got the gems, and I'm going back up. And I don't care if we have to get stuck here in this whole game, and we have to get stuck doing nothing but jumping up and down trees and pretending that's exciting because there's nothing to look at. But there's something there. I see it now. It's the trees and the woods and this music. It seems like something cooler is happening, but it really isn't. It's just these weird dots and mixos that work all the video games. It's so boring. I mean, but Dungeon Master, this is like his real life. He does nothing but goes into these games and shows us where to go, and he doesn't know what's really going on in reality around him, and everything's changing, and that this is to him is a reality. We've just got to pretend to know what Dungeon Master's talking about, because usually he's leading us through a game or something, and I don't know.
I'm just worried about Dungeon Master. He gets trapped in these levels and then says they're cool and they are cool. I don't want to take anything away from the game or his game or anything, but do you really think... Now, I want to ask you this personally. We don't have to tell Dungeon Master. He's gone away right now. He had to take a trip to the end of this level. He said it was so overwhelmingly beautifully made. So let me ask you a question. How many of you think that Dungeon Master's game is really a dungeon from some game? Has he ever told anybody what game he's playing? Oh, so he's playing the game Dungeon Master, but he's the Dungeon Master. Dungeon Master, well, has he ever... Oh, they say he's related to Wizards of the Coast. Well, then he's in. I'm out of here. I just wanted to question the greatest man on earth, because if he was in with Wizards of the Coast, then he can absolutely do nothing all day but film Wizards and Warriors and still be the most amazing man on earth, because they only hire the best and the brightest, and there's only like 44 of them out of the 144,000 that they need to fulfill the prophecy, and that he's about 150 shy of being in 150th place at Wizards of the Coast have a special message. They say, well, it's happy that we sent in a spy to test that they were Wizards of the Coast, but if they are, they can't say they are and get away with being so unless they've gone through the induction, which is so near deadly that, like, the Amsterdam version of Dungeon Master wouldn't even seem like a schooling. It would seem like a half a rule or something, and then that he just is defeating boss after boss is exciting. I'm excited about this Wizards and Warriors game. That's really a long time in the coming. It's like real-time Wizards and Warriors. I mean, how can you beat that? And I really, now that I see it from Wizards of the Coast way, I see it as a great thing. Oh, commercial, let us reside in the qualms of defeat unless we rank past the commercial. Oh, commercial, wonder why. Another commercial. We need to zonk this out and skip the ad. Now, sorry, commercials do happen on YouTube. We worship YouTube. We use only YouTube. We only plan on being around with YouTube on the map. Now that we're back in Wizards and Warriors, it's a good thing that we had a break there, because it wouldn't be as though we're copying too many of the images as would be made by a perfect game, which this one is not a perfect game, Mr. Potter. I'm sorry, you'll have to take second chair, because before Harry Potter, there was Wizards of the Coast, and after that, there was Wizards and Warriors, and that's what we're in the middle of. I've made it further just in this game, by now, only in the last 8 minutes, that it seems like it's been an eternity since we started playing, because when we played this game, we get half this far in about 12 times as long. So that he's going right along means he must have some kind of map or industry or availability to the internet, or that this is just the internet's go at what all is supposed to be. But that this kind of reminds me of a battle I was once in, with some flying icicles coming at me in all directions. I remember that battle. Even Genji remembers that battle. And so now that I'm on the ice dodge level, let me tell you, I'm going the distance. And if any of you think that we won't see it to the end, well, we'll see it to the end if we have to. But if time comes by before we can see all of us get to the very ending of this show, remember now that we got as far as we could. And that's saying a lot, because Dungeon Master usually doesn't go all the way to the end. And why I'm called Dungeon Master over a game called Dungeon Master. I'm the Dungeon Master of it, and my name is Dungeon Master. I know that sounds redundant, but trust me, the creator of this show says redundancies is key way of keeping attention, because if he does anything different, they'll say he's an art director, and then he have to go back to his old job at we won't tell you what that was because it was so heinously like Charlie Chaplin in City Lights that even a street sweeper would gain more respect, and does gain respect. And I'm not bagging on street sweepers, and I think we should take a street sweeper episode every time we think of one and all the heroic things they've done. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but sooner or later you're gonna have to realize that if you're not Dungeon Master, well, then you should train to become one. And there is a book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Dungeon Master, that you should read. And that it's online, and that it came out with a couple of Dungeon Masters ago. It's cool, but like, you should totally check out Hitchhiker's Guide to Dungeon Master. It's good. Aaron Sheedy wrote it. He's that writer guy I was telling you about. And get me started on him. He's a Wizard of the Coast too. We'll get out of here. So now that we progress down the icy corridor, back to what looks like progress already made in one direction, progress never made in the other. Into the cave we go, like we have a map of this whole place, and there's gems all around us, and that's good because we can make beautiful things out of gems. And that we've got a good score here and a good average. Let's take a look at what we've got. We're doing pretty good. That this doesn't have a counter on it anymore isn't totally true, and that we just skipped ahead by a minute isn't totally true either. Hopefully we didn't go backwards, although we kind of didn't. Although we did. And that was a tricky course because we're actually routed as though we have 11 minutes on here. But this is routed as longer, so the commercial must have dug somewhere and dropped us through to not have the exact evidence of the game entire, which makes me a little less worried about having only the shots of the game in the show, but that the show Dungeon Master has never led us so poignantly through such a difficult video game. And now what is he playing? Is that Quidditch or something for wizards? Is he playing Quidditch? Or is he just popping bats out of the sky? Well, if you're jumping and popping bats out of the sky, that's one way to spend your weekend, right? I mean, you don't have a lot of time to do much, so you just spend your weekend popping bats out of the sky. And there's a boss bat, and he's tricking it, and he's going to fight it. And it seems I have played this level, but did I win last time? And did not the boss bat mow wrath my back in half? All right, we're going on. We're moving on. We're going to continue this drudgery of Dungeon Master, and that we've come so far and made it so well done, and that everything is just looking so impressive, and the sound is coming out, and there's what recess looked like on a really beautiful screen. But that we have to play some of this commercial doesn't bother me, because that means we're playing commercials. And yeah, do we want everyone to buy Reese's? Of course we do. I would never question it. Do you agree? Irrelevant to you. Agree. We should have said strongly agree, but I couldn't raise the mouse up there somehow. Now that we're back in the midst of it, doesn't mean we kick in the flow. We kick in the flow, and dude, we on level 3, man. It don't even matter if we go any further. We can just hang out here and say, hey, we're the farthest in this game ever made. And hey, what's with this, isn't it? Oh, I remember this level, the bubble floaty level. Yes, of course, the bubble floaty level. Everybody remembers this. It's like every other Nintendo game has the bubble floaty level, and that's the bubble floaties that get you around that you would really take. Maybe not, but it seems there once was a standard of video games with plot inherent and inscribed it all to be like the arcade game, but only much more like what the future game would be, and that Wizards and Warriors takes on a heritage of that, own sample of demonstration for all to see. But I have to warn you, we may have to go back half-end and skip a certain part. I'm warning you, this warp could be an entanglement of things we don't get to see very often, but we're trying it. For the sake of the warp zone that was just administered, we're going to try a further level into it. And this doesn't look like it'll get us out necessarily in record time either, but that it'll get us out a lot faster to the clothesline is where we need to be. And I'm sorry if you don't agree with my warp zone policy, but I can and will warp to any point in this game that I want to, just as not to demonstrate one long take of the game, which is already what's proposed on the YouTube channel, which is why it would be steamingly funny to try and go through one of those, which I have, and I'm not commenting on the fact that it could have been so provocatively priority to get through this whole game by the standard, by the way you can go. But now I believe he's so far ahead that I haven't appeased these moments in time quite with my own trickery or wallfoonery, but that I'm choosing an even this is the warp zone I really wanted to hit. Because now we're like in the middle of the castle level, and that's 2/3 into the game, and 2/3 is better than nothing because we're going through it at a pace that will show us the game only in places that we thought we'd have to wait for 20-30 minutes to get to, but that it wouldn't be waiting because that we're fighting all the way through isn't the reason we skipped the bubble level, which I think is redundant to say we skipped the bubble level because we brought you to at least 2 minutes of it, and that 2 minutes was dicing out the edits in this, and that there's no edits in Dungeon Master anymore, and they never really were, except in the first 5,000 remakes of the first 2 shows that were hidden among the TV archive, and only the Internet archives have such a jaunt into where Dungeon Master has and hasn't gone, and that it seems to be the way of the world is just on our back every time we send these negative compositions to our manufacturer. We say, can we keep these alluring windows into time for ourselves in the Dungeon Master Reckoning? That is to make these out games the artworks that they seem and propose to be. That they are artworks makes you still have to say, well, look at how simple the graphics used to be, but the graphics aren't so simple. Because if you get up close to a graphic like that, you'll see that it's completely able to expand, and that it's made is such to be such a good graphic when close up that it's never relatable to how far away from the screen we sit, and that it still looks dignified to us. That we're going on an adventure and getting gems is another matter, and that I'm scooting back and still showing off how good this game looks isn't a problem. And when I'm looking for games with looks, I look no further than to the game itself. And I've got just something that I want to, well, show you all before we leave. And that is, oh, we got a commercial. Oh, this looks like a cool video game. We better skip that ad before it rules out our Wizards and Warriors. That's new video game stuff that we're just showing, man. It was really cool. It was really intimidating. And there was like this guy who blew up Earth, dude. I couldn't understand. Sorry, still stuck in the commercial, but this game's cooler. Wizards and Warriors, man. He's blowing down these demons and bats and skeletons that are all coming after him at once. And, hey, ho, blow the man down, right? Like they say in Three Amigos, you got my back? Yeah, you got my back on Three Amigos? Yeah, that's the same era as when this game came from. The 80s and 90s, and this is totally back in the 80s, and that we're totally getting trapped in the 80s video game asunder, and that it's not, we know we're good at this game too, but come on now, this used to be the hardest game, and here we are at the end, and now can't just float. Can I just float and blow up a demon? Can I please just float and blow up a demon? I mean, I'm trying to with my sword and everything, but alright, if you don't want to see the end of this, well, I freaking do. So come with me, everybody, to the end. Because we're getting closer on the edge of the moon, and there's wizards appearing like hot air balloons, and they're all over the place, but they're gone, and now I'm gonna fight another one like I can, and here I go, a-sailing. sailing just to mean that there's wizards all over the place, and I just don't know what I've seen. Alright, I'm going over this edge here, and I can't really make this jump, but that's because, well, this is pretty much the final wizard boss, and if you don't believe me that it's the final wizard boss, that you have to fight it for about an hour, well then, don't you dare come with me to the end, because if this ain't the final wizard boss, then I just ain't seen the final wizard. What are you gonna do? Shut the game off before I even get to the end? Oh, yeah, I'm at the end, bro. I'm at the end and going back. I'm at the end and going back. I'm at the end and going back. Yeah, well, right when that fades, I'm gonna start it over because we gotta get what we missed. Who wants to go back now that the game is beat? Oh, no one does? No one does? Oh, now somebody does. I just saw someone raise their hand that said they want to check out the middle of the game the way they never have before, which is now because they never have before. And that we're going back. Gonna go back in time, and the Parsifal lands right where we once were. Now, I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good as I ever once was now. So I got that key, bro. I got a golden key, and I'm a million miles away from the end. And now I don't know what else I can just try to pretend to be. Locked in the dungeon master's worst nightmare. He said he'd make it to the end, and then he'd never return there. But I took a vote, and everybody wanted to play the game again. And that's when I got some gems, and I got hooked on tonic and gin.
Well, folks, it is Dungeon Master time to tell you that I like this part of the game too. I like this part of the game because you're like stuck in a tree, and we haven't had enough stuck in a tree levels. It's just beyond me how we even got into this mess. This suddenly we're at the end, and we've seen the end, and now that's supposed to make us not want to get out of the dungeon. Was there a level up? Do you think if I went to the right place, we could get a level up? We've got another video game being broadcast via commercial. We're skipping it. Now, the only reason we're skipping it is because we don't know if the commercials on our site are the same commercials that they ordered for us on the Wizards and Warriors program. That Nintendo did a lovely job of putting this on YouTube, and that we're loving to take bits and pieces of the collective game all the way through to analyze how we too are gonna get out of this dungeon. And guess what that means? That means you motherfucking believe it, it's a level up, dude. Level 62 all the way to level, remember, 37. So we're getting up there. We're gonna get you up to 99.99, right? Someday Dungeon Master gets to level 99. Well, forget about it, because it's 30 levels to go, and we've got less time than that to make more episodes than that. So what do you think? We go through a tree, and suddenly now we're a badass knight who can kick anybody's ass with his sword? And then if this is supposed to be a wizard, why is he fighting wizards at the end? And isn't he a warrior wizard? So it isn't wizards and warriors, it's a warrior wizard, right? And now that we've got the level up, we're just like, well, let them play it out. Well, we're letting them play it out. Because I don't remember which way to the end, but this is nowhere near the end of the beginning. So if you want to just come in here, show me your Dungeon Master skills for like the rest of the time that I can actually even make a journal entry out of this blast from the past. And some might ask us why we never use the games from nowadays and the better graphics, and like these graphics are good. Remember, we can get right up close and see how good they are. That he's jumping off of. Whoa, dude, don't talk to me while I'm jumping off the castle, bro. Going all the way off the castle. Going down the castle, gonna find my way to the end of it, down at the bottom of the castle. See, I told you it was there. Now,
That's the very reason we choose levels like this and games like this, and it makes me so sad that most of you grew up never knowing what this game was, and it makes me so sad that Dungeon Master himself had to cull it from a report of things that were very Dungeon Mastery to him. And he said one of the reasons he became a Dungeon Master is because he played Wizards and Warriors, and I can't tell you what it means to Wizards of the Coast to even have a game named after him and not even know it. Everybody knows Wizards of the Coast named themselves after this game, but are much more cunning and evil and just deadly if you even try to fight them in battle than even the last wizard on this game. They kind of died randomly, didn't he? Like, was anybody else watching that part? Or are we too far back or too far forward? How did we get into this wormhole? More Wizards and Warriors. Didn't we see the end? Did we see the end? Then why are we stuck here? Who got us back into this? And where were you when all of this started? Now I'm just stuck in this one part. Oh, I feel a warp coming on. Warp of Ages. Hello, this is Dungeon Master for one last Gookoo for you all that was still in the game, but we saw the ending. Is no technique admonished more than non-linear editing. That we went back through the story linearly the second time, which was non-linear, to go to the beginning of it again, means we showed it linearly twice in a non-linear fashion, and that is just where we'll take it, because this game needs all the resonance it can get, and that we really only missed a truncation of about 15 minutes from the whole thing. Really makes me wonder if it was to fear redundancy, or in fact to heighten the fact that we had to go through the game twice to see it for as long as we saw certain scenes before, and that's what truncated it in the first place, which makes sense, but that we've gone through it twice in different spots is what I'm trying to confuse you about. Now, I was wondering if you could get confused about the fact that you just knocked a demon off the sky. And could you get confused about me shooting these electronic demon heads down and not even caring? And we're sitting here watching this game the whole time, and we're talking about the kind of game it is, while meanwhile these flying skull heads are getting knocked out of the sky by my shooting sword. And that my sword can shoot orbs, can you believe, just for a minute, that I'm shooting orbs at these floating heads and knocking them out of the sky. Now, I don't think there's anything really I could do besides shoot orbs at floating heads and knock them out of the sky. Do you believe I'm doing that because I'm seeing that on the screen and that those heads are getting pretty big that I'm knocking out of the sky with orbs on is a factor of this game that not a lot of people nowadays know about, that really we've been doing it this whole time, and it suddenly becomes a surprise to us all that we knock it out of the sky. Now this is a real surprise because it was one of those commercial things that we're paying them for. Well, hang on, I've got to get my wallet out. Pay, there you go. Okay, I paid you. That was my attempt at paying them back for the commercial that they planted in my film, which I actually planted on them. Thank you, YouTube. You guys are too much. I hope you make tons of money, YouTube. I hope this is already on there and that you make tons of money, and that there's a bunch of people that come along and just sell YouTube products all the time, because that's what we're doing. We're selling YouTube, and by selling YouTube, you're selling your favorite band. That I'm doing it with Wagner on the Parsifal. Let's hear it for Wagner. He's been on for 30 minutes, and he's not even pissed off yet. And usually, he gets pissed off by now. And don't get me started on how this is the Varn Karahan Act 2 of Parsifal. Really doesn't bother me as bad as saying that Wizards and Warriors is starting one of those wizard battles that's really hard to defeat, and now we're going all the way to the end with it. Like, this is where that wizard battle started and we've already seen it? Or are we playing the movie version that we've already just recorded back onto the screen? Or does it even matter? Dungeon Master, do you have any final comments?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do have a final comment. Yes, I do. Hang on. Dungeon Master coming in. Dungeon Master coming in. Do you have a final word to say? That I am Dungeon Master. Yes, I have a final word. This game is totally
freaking cool, and I'd play it for 100 years stuck on the first level, that he's knocking people down off a noose and saving somehow the princess is a really strange way to look at it, but that they're pretty close. To thine end of the game makes more sense for us than any of us had ever expressed since the game was made in 1925 and aired on NES in the 70s. Good night, everyone, to you who has just seen the future of video games end again. Good night.